Hi, this is Ramos Reviews, the channel where I quickly express my thoughts and opinions about all types of movies. Today I'll be looking at 1994's The Shawshank Redemption, directed by Frank Darabont. The Shawshank Redemption is based on a book named Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, and it was written by the one and only Stephen King. Just from the author alone, I should have been interested right then and there, but I wasn't. Though what did interest me was the fact that my dad and his sister loved this movie. And let me tell you, my dad let alone likes a few movies, but he truly loved this one. So of course, with the combination of an amazing story writer and my family's personal backing, it was impossible not to make me even a little bit interested. Plus, come on, it has Morgan Freeman and was directed by the same dude that co-wrote the Blob remake and Dream Warriors. So yeah, with the people involved and the opinions I've heard, it made this movie seem very promising, and luckily it did not disappoint. So once again, I don't have a clear rating system, but I do mainly base my ratings on things like how well it's made, like special effects, directing, acting, how good it's written, like story, creators, and creativity, and how entertaining and enjoyable I found the movie to be overall. Now if you agree with me, that's great, and if you don't, that's fine. Everyone's open to the opinion, and this is just mine. Now, let's get to the breakdown. The Shawshank Redemption is about a carefree banker who gets put in a corrupt prison due to being framed for double murder. He begins to successfully make the best of his very unfortunate life, but as decades pass, his life begins to decline even more, and starts to really think about whether he would rather get busy living or get busy dying. From the very start, we get an intriguing intro that sets up the backstory of our main protagonist, Tim Robbins as Andy Dufresne. Andy is the most carefree, optimistic, and intelligent prisoner that I've ever seen in cinema, and co-starring with him is Morgan Freeman as Ellis Redding, or as he's mostly known as, Red. Red is an honest working prisoner who isn't very fond of the idea of freedom anymore. He's just understandably hopeless considering he's been a decent person for over 40 years in prison. Yet he was always denied parole while very few people were ever even approved. Plus, he's not the annoying over-the-top pessimistic character that most prison set movies or shows have. Luckily, this movie isn't like the others. It gives us a fresh take on a character who's pessimistic but doesn't go out of his way to make everyone else miserable. Also, their friends are very likable supporting characters. They all have their own unique personalities and characteristics that are also realistic. Similar to the warden and captain, without a doubt they're the biggest assholes of the film, and their main purpose is to irritate the audience, and trust me, they do. Just when you think they're developing as decent people, you immediately find out that they're just putting on an act to gain from their powerless prisoners. It's a great way to depict the corruption and unethical morals, even though it's very irritating. In general, all the characters were well done and very enjoyable to follow. Plus, the overall writing and direction of this movie are impressive as well. Most prison movies are completely focused on escaping prison and their plans and steps to do so. However, in The Shawshank Redemption, we mostly follow Andy as he does his best to live in the life that he's stuck in. Yes, he does end up escaping, and it's one of the most memorable moments of the film, but that's because Andy does so much other things for the prison that it completely takes away our focus from even the concept of escaping prison. Out of the entire prison, Andy is probably the only one who's truly innocent, and that's why it's special. Not just because he escaped, but because over 27 years of hard work and patience from an innocent imprisoned man, he rightfully deserves to be free. Plus, he stopped the corruption in the prison, which made it that much more satisfying. But this movie isn't always that way. This movie is a well-done roller coaster of emotions. When it wants to be sad, it gives us absolutely tragic scenes, like the death of the overweight prisoner. Even though we know nothing about him, his beating is so brutal that when we find out that he later died from the injuries inflicted on him, it genuinely hurts to hear. Not to mention Brooke's unfortunately short life after prison. Though, don't get it twisted, this movie can be depressing, especially due to the prison setting and situations, but this movie is also pretty funny. It's mainly due to the many friendly quips and roasts the characters have for one another. They're very humorous and give pleasant scenes that help the audience bond with the characters who are supposed to be terrible criminals. Especially one of my favorite scenes, the beer on the roof scene. Andy risking himself of a potential beating or death to help his fellow inmates is one of the most satisfying scenes that take place within the prison and helps earn Andy respect that grows even larger over time, which he rightfully deserved, by the way, since throughout the movie he helped what appears to be only others. But obviously we learn later that he also secretly helped himself immensely. Due to many of his plans and ideas being so unbelievably naive, seeing it all come into fruition is such a surprising and satisfying thing to watch. They were so crazy that even Red felt the need to worry and tell Andy how ridiculous it is. And that was also great. Knowing that the prisoners who could be potential murderers also genuinely care for Andy makes me glad to see, especially when it's Tommy. When we first met Tommy, he looked like a cocky and potentially annoying person, but instead he's an uneducated person who's just looking for assistance in his education and overall life. That's why he goes to Andy for help, and luckily Andy agrees to aid him. Seeing him do decent education wise is heartwarming since he almost never really believed in himself, which is why his death right after is so emotionally painful to watch happen. Tommy's death was the breaking point for Andy and personally for me. The prison was bad as is, and it was getting better, but to kill parents struggling for an education, that was just too far. Which is why after decades, he finally begins to become visibly hopeless, and when he asks for a rope and obtains it, it's very worrying for his well-being, which furthermore makes the twist of escape that much more unexpected. It's done in such a cleverly planned and persistent way that kind of reminds me of the escape in The Promised Neverland. The behind the poster escape was honestly predictable, but the fact that he did that with such a small hammer for decades and was also calculated is why the escape is so unexpected and super satisfying. It's possibly one of the most satisfying endings of all time, especially due to Red being also released. He finally gets released, not by doing and saying the same thing, but instead because of his fearless and finally honest words to the Bureau, showing us how significant Andy and Brooks were in Red's life. This movie also has a weird, interesting dynamic of scenes that show both how prison isn't that bad and how terrible prison actually could be. The only true issue I had with this movie was all the sister scenes. Even if the characters are probably realistic, I feel like the sister scenes were a bit pointless to the story and were scenes that were just so uncomfortable that I just wanted it to be over. However, I did appreciate that they weren't explicit. But yeah, other than those certain scenes, this movie is still amazing, so let's see what rating it earned. The Shawshank Redemption understood the job completely. In its entirety, it's a movie that is filled with so many emotions, and they're all done flawlessly. It's amazing at being funny, sophisticated, satisfying, heartbreaking, and character-wise purposefully irritating. There are almost no faults to this movie. Without a doubt, this movie is an easy 10 out of 10, with a recommendation to watch if you enjoyed movies like The Green Mile, The Departed, or The Prestige. Thank you for watching this Ramos review on Frank Darabont's The Shawshank Redemption. If you want me to review a movie, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed this review, please leave a like and subscribe. It'll help me a lot and I would thoroughly appreciate it. Anyways, I'll talk to you in my next review.